to our first live post-game show on Feathers and Field Goals podcast. I'm waiting to see if this is live. I'm still, working with this for the first time. I do see I am live, so let's dive right into this. Delaware in front of a sellout crowd. I believe the attendance numbers for this was 19,176. This was the largest crowd since October 2015, October 2018 against Elon, first nationally televised game for the Blue Hens since October 3rd, 2015 for the Hens against William & Mary in a game-winning field goal to win that game against an FCS nationally ranked team. The Blue Hens fall 27-24 against the Hilltoppers in a game that it really showed the margins of being in Conference USA, being in FBS, and just thinking about there's a lot of opportunities there for the Hens to come out on top in their first home Conference USA game. Looking at the field now, the Weekday CUSA slate that has started in the month of October. I guess let's slowly just break down the start of the game. Delaware wins the coin toss and wants to elect to receive the ball. You don't see that too often to start the game. So you know that Coach Carty and his offensive staff wanted to get the ball, and it showed in that first drive of the game, a 15-play, 75-yard drive, a crucial third down catch from Jake Thal, that third and Thal that we've talked about all season, back in the lineup for the first time, driving down the field, scoring a touchdown to start the game. And the defense, we talk about turnover margins all of the time, the defense forcing a fumble as Western Kentucky's going down the field, eight plays, 44 yards, and the Blue Hens force a turnover, unfortunately go 3 and out, only getting 1 yard there back. Western Kentucky, the defense again. This is going to be a theme. The defense did everything on their side of the ball to win this game for the Blue Hens. But again, the Western Kentucky was held for a field goal, and Delaware responds with a field goal of their own, a 14-play, 69-yard drive. It ends with inside the 10, and you want to get 6 there, counters with 3 themselves, and then Western ties the game up from a drive full of X plays on both sides of the field. But, counters 10-10, and this kind of gives you similar vibes to the Connecticut game in the sense of Delaware getting an early lead and getting punched back, but then Delaware on the offensive side of the ball countering themselves, taking a 17-10 lead right back after a 13-play, 75-yard drive, very similar in terms of yards, plays, and distance to the first one, being 6 minutes as well. Western Kentucky, thinking about the half, it was 10-10. Scoring those points to get into half was crucial for the Hens. So I talked about my halftime notes here. Both defenses in similar structure, 3-3-5 defense. Both structures were kind of bend on break. I think the over and under for this it started at like 65 and a half. It ended at 61 and a half. But, both offenses, looking at Delaware, a 15-yard drive to start the game, a 14-yard drive, 14 play, not a yard, 15 play to start, had a 14 play drive that only resulted in 3, and then an 8-play, 61-yard drive and a 2-minute drill that was beautiful. But thinking of Western Kentucky side, an 8-play, 44 yards results in a fumble, an 8-play, 55-yard drive results in a field goal, a 13-play, 75-yard drive results in 6. So both defenses in the first half bend, don't break. I thought McIver had a lot of time in the first half to throw, and even the second half, he even scrambled a lot in this one. But I think McIver got a little comfortable in the pocket, thinking about, and my last note, thinking of that last drive sets the tone for the second half. And Dan talked about it in our podcast before, the middle 8 minutes is crucial for the Blue Hens. Thinking about, they force a stop to start the half, and a quick 3-and-out punt, and even after that 15-yard penalty that was enforced on the kickoff to start the half, and Delaware unfortunately has to punt themselves. They get a first down, but don't get any positive yards on that second chain moving set of plays, and have to punt themselves. Western Kentucky mimics themselves, goes down the field for a field goal to cut it to 4 points, similarly as they did at the start of the first half. And this was an opportunity for the Hens to do what they did, is add more points back. But unfortunately, an interception, a third play into that drive, the Western Kentucky front, starts at the line, shadows back. Nick doesn't see him, and it results into an easy interception and walk in for 6, really, for the Hilltoppers. And so this is the first time the Blue Hens found themselves down in this. And how are they going to counter? Because we've seen them down before throughout the season. And they go down the field, massive X play to get inside the 10, and then fumbles with inside the 5. It was nearly at the 2-yard line. A back-to-back possessions, 2 turnovers for the Hens. Thinking about this, you stop them on their second drive of the half, makes it 17-13. You get the ball back. It's a swing, giving them the touchdown, 20-17. You get into the red zone, you're thinking, okay, 24-20. But then it swings back, fumble outside of the red zone. Western Kentucky scores to take their first 2-possession lead of the game at 27-17. And you're thinking that's really a 21-point swing in the matter of a third quarter. And, I mean, you saw this. The Blue Hens took the lead into the half, but the Hilltoppers took advantage of every opportunity that the Hens gave them in the third quarter. The fourth quarter, it started out Delaware. I tweeted here in the press box that it was kind of now or never. If you're going to hang in this game, it comes down to that drive there at the start of the fourth. As I tweeted, as important of a drive ever. Sorry, I was scrambling there because I was looking for it. And then after the score, it was a 5-minute, 44-yard drive, 13 plays, 75 yards. Minicucci scores again for the third time of the night. And then you're thinking 27-24. This looks very similar to the UConn game. I believe that score happened with 9:54 remaining in the fourth quarter, and it just what the doctor ordered. You're thinking about the defense just needs to make another stop, and the defense, it does. 4 plays, 5 yards, gets an immediate punt, and then Delaware does what they need to do on the offensive side of the ball, mimicking the UConn game in the sense of getting in field goal range. And this game had mirror images of each other, and we saw the margins between the two sides. The defense did their job, just like the UConn game. The offense did their job into getting in the field goal range. Here's the 3rd and 1 call. The 3rd and 1. It was marked as 4th and 2 on that Joe Silver catch on the right side of the field. Pulling up the play-by-play myself so I can recollect some thoughts, because the ending was a series of heartbreak for the Blue Hens. You could feel the emotion in the press box, in the post-game presser in the game. Coach Carty, Nick Minicucci, Blake Matthews joining in that end there. But I think at 3rd and 10 on Western Kentucky's 31, we've seen Nate Reed hit from 47. So you're thinking, okay, if they can get positive yards but not the first, you're in a similar situation as the UConn game where you're going to attempt a fourth quarter field goal to tie it. But the opportunity presents where Joe Silver leak out to the right side. Nick finds him, pushed out of bounds. It was at first resulted in an 8-yard play, 4th and 2. And Coach Carty was fired up. I think everyone in the stadium, everyone, looking back at the broadcast throughout these moments, it looked like that ball had an argument to be spotted past the sticks there. It was at first 4th and 2. We talked about in the post-game presser. Coach Carty couldn't really give more on this because he said he didn't feel he was given enough info from the crew to share his opinions on it. But they had to burn a timeout in this moment, thinking about 4th and 2. They didn't really know where the clock. Looking from between the quarterback and the head coach, they didn't know where the ball was. So the play clock was down to 12, 13 seconds left in a fourth down situation. The analytics are telling you to go there. I know some people say, oh, take the points in that situation. Being at the 22-yard line, a 39-yard, 40-yard kick is not a give me at this level. All the momentum down the field. And then they have to burn a timeout. They want a replay. Delaware isn't giving it, but the referee crew comes, spots the ball up a yard for 4th and 1. So I think the Delaware learns out of the huddle from that timeout that they have to go for it 4th and 1. It was a pitch to the left. I think as soon as you saw the misdirection pitch, that Western Kentucky sniffed it out. You saw him try to really take us far out to the edge to get the yardage, but that play had no question short. The 3rd down, I wish had a second look, because I think that really sucked the life out of that time between the 3rd and 4th down play into that momentum of driving down the field. I mean, you're thinking of the start of that drive. You're starting at the 44 after that penalty that Western Kentucky had on the fair catch call, kick catch interference. Western Kentucky was in Duplessis' face. So you start at your own 44, and you're working the ball up the field. You get a few first downs into the 22. It's into plus range to score, and then it gets stopped. And then in your head, you're thinking they had to burn a timeout there for this. What happened with that timeout? And I think that's a timeout they wish they had for. We're going to get into the final drive of thinking about now. This just mimics the UConn game completely. Down 3. Western gets a first down to take us to the 2-minute. Delaware with 2 timeouts left. Delaware calls a timeout on a 3-yard run. 2nd and 7 on Western's 40. Stop again, 3rd and 6. 3rd and last timeout, 2nd timeout of this. And you're thinking in your head, if they had one more timeout, they could clock it around 1:40 and have a chance to get the ball back to tie it, or maybe potentially win it. Very similar to the UConn game in that sense. But 3rd and 6, Western chooses to right call, runs it down. 4th and 4, runs it and clocks it themselves with their final timeout with 1:03 left. And they punt it to the Delaware 5. Duplessis, in that moment, is trying to make a play. I don't fault him for, you're thinking your team has no timeouts left. You have to try to make a play on that. In hindsight, maybe you could try to let the ball go through the end zone to have a chance to get that ball at the 20 instead, because then you're cutting field position. But you're thinking about the FIU game, return touchdown, momentum there for Duplessis. So I don't fault him for trying to take that ball and make a play, because that's what he's asked to do. He's made plays both in special teams and offense all year. But thinking about this final drive here, crafted beautifully, even more beautifully in the sense of what you needed in the UConn drive. That first play, a 4-yard gain to Elijah Sessoms, who a career high catches on the night for Sessoms. Really has done a lot for the program, and the tight ends sometimes don't get the ball thrown their way in this offense. But Sessoms tonight, 5 catches, a career high for 43 yards. So thinking of that 2nd and 6. And then Joe Silver leaks out for a 28-yard catch. Gets out of bounds on left side. Clock stopped with the time isn't in here, but with plenty of time to work with. I think it was in the 30-ish second range. But pass interference, 1st and 10, get down the field. I mean, it was a great, in hindsight, great penalty for Western Kentucky. Sean Wilson had him down the left side of the field. As soon as it happened, I'm thinking NFL. I wish it was a spot foul. But 15 yards there gets you to the Western 48-yard line. Minakuchi finds Wilson in the middle of the field before that play. Holding penalty obviously declined after that 23-yard reception. And then so you're thinking you get the ball to 25. There's about 12 seconds left in the game. Delaware elects to have the clock start on the signal. So in your head, you're thinking, okay, they're just clocking it to have a chance to kick it in similar fashion to UConn. In my head, I was thinking that the clock wouldn't start until the snap. So I was thinking maybe there'd be one shot at the end zone. You have to be very, very careful in that scenario because you're not getting a chance to spike it in that moment. It was 1st and 10. You're not getting a chance to throw it downfield, make the play, and spike it to get the field goal unit out. So I was thinking it's either a shot to the end zone or a spike. And they elected to spike it. 42-yard kick. Operation, thinking about this in the UConn game, was everything went right in that moment for the Hens in that kick. For UConn, in this sense, I'll have to watch it back, but as an overall operation, the snap wasn't perfect. It was a low snap. Lock on the hold. Still grabbed it, recollected it. Nate Reed just missed it wide right. 42-yard kick that would have sent it to overtime. And it would have been, so you think about a game of margins. Think about the UConn game. You think about how everything that had to go right for the defense on that final drive down 3. You think about it, everything that had to go right for the offense down 3 in order to get into field goal range. You think about everything that had to go right for the special teams unit to send the game into overtime. And then in overtime, defense forcing 3, doing their job, offense making sure the game ends there. And then you think of a game like tonight where you have a fumble inside of your own 5. You give the defense a touchdown in Western. You get stopped on 4th and short. And you miss a kick that has the opportunity to send you overtime, even with the defense doing their job. And you look at the box score from tonight. Looking at the score up here, Delaware, 435 yards to Western's 338 of the night. Time of possession, close, but Delaware still led in that margins as well. Looking at the team stats overall, first downs, Delaware almost double, 29-16. Rushing was very similar, 121 to 108. Pass 14 from Delaware to 230 Western Kentucky. They played good enough to win this game, and there was multiple opportunities that they just didn't execute, and that's really the tell of the tale. The UConn game, they did everything they could, and you see the other side of it when not everything is a clean operation. Team's emotional over it. Of course, Delaware can't fight for that conference title. They can't technically get into a bowl game. They could get help from others when that time comes. So there's not really much to lose at this point. You have a very veteran team on both sides of the ball. A team that's very proud of being the first as a unit to play FBS football. You're thinking of the sellout crowd as they had tonight, and they really still had nothing to lose in this scenario. It's a game of margins, and all of those margins fell short. And they're very emotional over it. You could tell. Nick Minicucci in the post-game presser said this loss is all fully on him. Definitely very emotional over it. He said, I made 2 mistakes. We talked about turnovers all week, and I made 2 of those. So he took full accountability. Coach Carty supported him throughout that. So it's a loss that's going to sting. It definitely stung the crowd here tonight. It was a very well showcased Delaware Stadium Parents and Family Weekend. Definitely one I will remember. First one not being in the crowd and being in the press box myself. But we're going to find positives in this. We're going to look back into it in our podcast. That our scheduling is going to be a little bit different moving forward, because now we're fully transitioning into weekday CUSA. Into we have a bye week again, one quick game and a second bye week to transition into that Wednesday slate. We'll get back into Jacksonville State on the road on October 15th. So they have 12 days from now and then. Let that loss sting. I know Coach Carty likes to use the word energy a lot, and talking about turnovers. The ball finds energy, and energy is a talent. So use the energy from this loss to face. Now it's a really tough slate to start. You're playing Western Kentucky at home. Now you're playing the defending champs, Jacksonville State, who is also going to be pushing for another meeting in the conference USA championship. So it's going to be a tough battle before they get back into here for Middle Tennessee for their home Wednesday night. So 12 days from now and then, you're 3-2. You have an opportunity to get right. You have an opportunity to let that soak in a little bit. Some quick last minute things before I close out of here and I head back to Maryland. I have a healthy drive ahead of me here. But 11 pass catchers tonight that Minicucci found. They're very impressive. Jake Thal back out there, 4 receptions, 55 yards. Silver, Sessoms, Wilson, Duplessis, Donovan Lewis. That drive that led to the missed. Oh, I gotta find this now because Donovan Lewis had that 30-yard reception and then he drew a pass interference in the end zone. So it was really good to see Lewis back in the offense and fully be integrated after missing basically all of fall camp. Jakari Kelly, Nick LeBoy, Max Patterson, Connor Widoff, and Byron Ellison. It's 11 pass catchers for 28 catches and 314 yards. So a lot of people did right today. It's just a few plays you're going to want back. There's going to be positives to take away, but it definitely doesn't take away from how much this one definitely stings in the tub. I guess that's kind of it. I've been a little scrambled, but this is my first time doing a live show. We're going to integrate this more moving forward to get our live thoughts. I think it's important to take that first step before thinking about it from a second watch and a full hindsight view once we can get in podcast form. But that'll be it for us at Feathers and Field Goals. In this slate, I see Dan just posted it on Twitter. I just started it and jumped right in. So definitely watch us back if you couldn't join live. This is Bryce from Feathers and Field Goals. Signing off here from Delaware Stadium. Again, Western Kentucky, a 27-24 win in a game that really came down to a few plays that the Hens lost their margin in. So